I was thinking about initially towards be like sweaty buffet, but maybe I will not say that. I have a bunch of books here actually. This is how I spend my time with the pandemic. It was quite exciting, ordering like 5-6 books at a time, reading them in 2-3 months and then ordering more. Reading after a while can get a bit dull, so I like to spice it up after reading some books in a more late evening, watching some anime series. And I like about them because you can just like escape to a virtual world, and it's a nice combination between illustration, the storytelling, the acting, and the music, especially the piano music. Like animes with good piano music, I really do enjoy, and I fantasize sometimes like maybe I can compose something for those. And I sometimes play like the Ghibli studios from Joe Hisaishi. I play some of his songs, or at least I try to learn how to play them. I am Marius. I come originally from Romania. I lived there until like high school, and then from there on I moved to Italy, lived 10 years there, and for the last 7 years I live in Zürich, Switzerland. I am a principal engineer manager. I work at a small startup here in Zürich, Ledgy. I was the first investment of Sequoia in Switzerland, actually. It's a fast-growing startup where we democratize ownership. And I like to do some sports, going to work, coming back from work, on the weekends especially, biking, running, swimming, and some gym workouts. And play piano. I take lessons once a week during lunch on a Thursday, longer lunch. And I do it for like the last 3 years. And why I moved to Zurich? Because I found a job. And why I found the job? Because I was looking, after 10 years of living in Italy, in Milan, to move a bit outside. I wanted to have again the experience of living in a new country, learning a new language, a new culture. And I was a bit undecided where to go. I was looking more at Berlin, Paris, London. And those are like bigger cities, are in a more flat area. And my wife convinced me like, hey, let's go to Switzerland, let's visit Switzerland. So we went like on a 5-day trip in Switzerland. So we went to like Geneva, Lausanne, Bern, a bit of Zurich. And I kind of like fall in love with Switzerland in general, but also Zurich it's really nice. It has rivers, it has lake, the forests, and the small mountains. And you're in like an hour and a half, you can be up on very tall peaks, and it has a very vibrant tech community. So it's the best place as an engineer in Switzerland to work for. I normally go to work by public transportation. I think it works nicely in Zurich. During the rush hours, which is in the morning or in the evening, there is a train each 10 minutes, so that works nicely. In Zurich, it's quite easy to get around, actually. You have very good connections in the main train station. Roughly like, I don't know how many trains pass per minute, like almost like 1 train per second leaves the train station. It's a very well-connected hub. Today the tram is not so packed, but it's already a bit 8:30. Usually in Zurich people start working quite early. I would say they're at the office between 7:45 and 8:15. This is a new office building, recently built, so we're there at the 13th floor. I started working actually in 2009. I was in Italy back then, finishing my master's in computer science. And I actually ended up working for a consulting firm, a relatively medium size one. And I realized I want to be a developer. But also I didn't just want to work for any company. Lucky 13.
30, car 3, 2, left.
Especially like big ones. So for me, startups were the most appealing ones that you could align with their mission. And I think for me, it's quite important to align with the mission of a company. So that's one reason to work with a startup, because you can find maybe something that you do care, make a difference in the world. The other part is you, especially in the early stages of the startup, you tend to be more generalist. So you get to enrich your responsibilities quite fast. Another one is actually to be an owner of the company. So for me, like, I would not probably join a startup that doesn't give equity to employees, even if they might offer me, but not to everyone, or just like a few subset of employees. I think that's not fair. I think like all employees in a startup should own part of the startup they are working on. Interesting about Switzerland is also the flexibility of adapting your work contract. And what does that mean? For example, I work less than 100%, so I changed my contract to work 80%. What that means is instead of the regular 5 days, I work only 4 days. And I think this is something super cool that companies are doing it more and more. And yeah, I hope this becomes more of a trend. This is quite cool. So actually here you can see the 4 languages of Switzerland in the order of their usage. And it's German, French, Italian, and Romansh. And below is how Swiss people salute. It's with Grüezi. I hope I pronounced it well. Grüezi Google. Think about like the dev community. It's quite vibrant in Zürich. There are like many meetups weekly. They're like from web development to specific technologies, even like Angular, Vue.js or React. And what I also like are like more meetups targeted to more like the principles around like testing and code architecture, code reviews. And my special one is, it happens once a month, is like the software craftsmanship group in Zürich, which has a nice community, and it also organizes the Socrates Switzerland event, which I'm almost a regular, going there since the 2nd edition. And it's a type of event where you get like 2 days full unconference style, where developers propose topics and they learn from other developers and they can share their experiences. How is Zürich as a tech city, and how is it for you as a founder?
Yeah, it's very interesting because it's quite small, but there's a pretty high density of good talent. With the major magnets, I think, are the strong universities with ETH that spins out a lot of good students. And then also now the big companies, the software companies that realize the fact, and yeah, with a big part of Google settled in here, now also joined by Microsoft, Facebook, and other major software companies. From a hiring side, I think it's quite a bit more difficult to hire experienced people because there's not yet the big startups that you can hire people away from.
It can be a tough nut to crack also when you're new to the city, and so lots of people who are expats make friends with expats because they're a bit easier to relate to at the beginning. But once you do make friends with the locals, then they're very warm and very loyal.
Sometimes I have the feeling you have to book in advance, like a month in advance, to meet with a local. Let me check my calendar.
Not so special.
How about in 1 month and a half? At this time, at this hour? Yes, okay. So that happens.
Compared to many other developed countries, it still feels a bit like a sci-fi country because everything is kind of so planned and polished here. Like there's electric buses and everything is on time and so on. What I don't like yet about Zurich is that it's still too small. But I found really fascinating when I visited London some time ago was that there in the morning you have like roughly 1 million people running into the city district, going to work on building some stuff, and that bustling activity is a bit missing here.
We are now going to one of my favorite places in Zürich, Wettliberg. At least after 7 years living and working in Zürich, I would still like to continue doing these journeys here because you can achieve a healthy work-life balance. Even if I feel like in Zürich, people on average work a bit more in the startup ecosystem than I did in Italy, for example. I will continue choosing it for all the opportunities it gives to still have a healthy body and mind.
Thousands of developers find jobs across Europe using Honeypot. If you're up for a new challenge in one of these European cities, sign up at honeypot.io. If you want to see more tech documentaries, then subscribe so you don't miss the next one.